Socrates or Socrates. Reviews are raves, you're so great. Philosopher, philanthropist, philanderer. I don't know about Socrates. So, hello all. Well, it's day 88 of 100 Days of Making Comics with me, Gazbot. So, I'm not going to continue to talk like that the rest of the video. Today is day 88, or rather it was, as we're after midnight, and technically I'm on day 89 now. This is the video, however, for day 88 of 100 Days of Making Comics, where I put at least 30 minutes a day aside from client work and life in general to do work on my own personal project. In my case, it is my comic, The Horror A4, which is a kaiju giant monster sort of story, but based in a world where though those monsters are real, or were real, and also giant heroes that would fight them, no one has seen either one of those in 100 years, and now a new monster called the Horror has shown up. What do we do? That is the being worked on pitch. So today was an eventful day, semi-productive. I had to get up early. I got up at like 8:30. 2 doctor's appointments. I had to go to the eye doctor, get my laser eyes looked at. I don't have 20/20 vision. It's a notch below whatever that is, like 20/25, something like that, which is still pretty good. May still improve, but even if it doesn't, fine. As far as healing and all the other stuff, totally fine. Don't need to use drops. I'm a good eye. Blah, my eyes. Then from there, I went directly to the dentist to get the dentist work finished up that I started the other day, which was essentially taking off the temporary cap and putting on crowns, the 2 teeth that I got done. I expected it to be kind of an in and out thing. I ended up being there for like an hour and 15 minutes, and it stuck. I mean, it always sucks going to the dentist. Even if I get my teeth cleaned, I hate it. I hate it. I like going to the eye doctor, but I hate going to, because I like taking those little tests and doing well. But I hate going to the dentist, like many of us do. But he also has these assistants that are like new every time I go there. I'm like, I've never seen these people, and they're always like, seem to be getting on-the-job training. My dentist himself I like, but I'm getting tired of getting these newbies. I had some sensitivity to cold, and like they kept putting water and air on the teeth, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, are you in pain? I'm like, well, only because you're putting that cold on it, you know. And they're like, well, we'll get the doctor to numb you up for when we do the thing, because they just sort of took the old one off. So when he came over, I'm like, he's like, oh, I hear you're sensitive. I'm like, just a cold. It goes away after a second. He's like, well, we'll put some. I'm like, no, I'm fine. He's like, all right. I'm like, unless you're telling me I have to have it, I don't want any Novocaine, which I've never done before. And he's like, all right. And I was like, wow, that works, I guess. And so I went the whole time, didn't get the Novocaine. By the end, it did hurt quite a bit. Not like last time where I was like, ooh. It was pretty painful. To the point where I almost thought maybe I should have Novocaine. But it was a thing where it wouldn't hurt for a while, and then they were like, they had to jam it in and take it off and jam it in. He jammed it in and out so many times that it started hurting, something that wasn't really that painful, but the last time he put it in, I'm like, oh! And he's like, oh, well, you're not, numbed. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't think you put it in and out 8 times, So anyway, they're in, and theoretically it's fine. But I like walked out of the dentist's office, and it was a little shopping center, and I walked right into the whatever the food store was, and bought an ibuprofen and a water, and like drank it and ate it before I even paid for it. And I walked up to the counter, and they're like, "Hey, having a good day?" I'm like, "Yes," but it wasn't true. But anyway, didn't have any Novocaine, so I guess it's a win. Got home and I was still in pain, and I was also tired, so I was like, well, let me lay down for a minute. That ended up being like a 2 or 3 hour nap. Woke up, felt much better though. My tooth didn't hurt, and I just felt better. So that wasted almost all of my day. That took me to about 3:30. Let me check my notes, because I'm a note-taking fella now. Notes, this is an A. I don't know if that's an A, I have no idea. So got up at 3:30. When I got up at 3:30, it was almost like starting my day over. I had a cup of coffee, had some Pop-Tarts, kind of cleared the sleep out of my eyes, watched a show for a half hour. I had to do something with my cat, and then it was 4:30 when I actually started my work day, which is late even for me. Started coloring on the Earthling, put 3 hours in, finished a page. Will I put that page up? Yes. Here's the page. Ha! Earthling page, colored. Now, I talked before about how you can learn things working on other people's artwork, or at least I am, for good and bad. And the gentleman who's doing it is a very good artist, like I said. I enjoy his work. But something I did notice about his work that I didn't particularly like, and this is probably just a taste thing, is that he wasn't super consistent with his background details from panel to panel. And I noticed this a little bit on some other pages with like rubble and things like that. And it kind of bothers me. Again, not that I'm criticizing his art, but it would bother me the way I work. And again, maybe this is my animation background. Maybe this is me just trying to compensate for lack of art skill in other areas. So this is something I focus on. But I really try to make sure that if there's like a lamp to the left and a painting and then a cup, then it'll be the same and the same orientation in the next panel to the best of my ability. And if you quickly glance at his pages, that's what he does. But when I'm coloring it, for example, I did the city scene. And it was like, okay, here's the overhead view, and there's this McDonald's analog next to a hot dog stand, and then some regular buildings. And then you follow through, and the action continues, and it's like, okay, there's the tree that was in front of the hot dog stand, and there's the table, and like, it kind of makes sense. But then the next scene is a side view of that same street, and it's the edge of McDonald's, and a bunch of buildings. None of them are a hot dog stand, doesn't have that awning, there's nothing that could be that. And then the next panel, the lady's in front of this Chinese restaurant, which also isn't reflected in that middle panel. So it's almost like, oh, here's a bunch of buildings. Unless one of the buildings was referenced in the panel, he just drew generic buildings. That's kind of what it seems like. Which isn't the worst crime to be guilty of. I mean, he still drew nicely drawn buildings perspective. But when I was coloring it, I'm like, okay, I got to put in orange for this one and red for the Chinese restaurant. Wait, what? And then I'm kind of just putting red color on a random building that doesn't really match to kind of hint that that's... Because to me, I'm like, well, it has to be that, And similarly, he turns down an alley, and there's a bunch of papers and rubble and all different types of debris all over. But in the next panel, he's in the exact same spot, and there's way less debris, and it's all rock. And I'm like, because when I went to color it, I did the next page after, and so I was like, oh, these will just all be the gray rocks. And I'm like, these aren't. That's like paper and boxes and stuff. So I colored it as what it was. But it's just like that kind of stuff. It's weird because it bothers me as my artistic sensibilities, but it also makes it more difficult to color because I'm trying to keep it consistent, and it's hard sometimes. But that went fine. And then after that, I took a break, had dinner. Then from 9:30 to 11, I worked on the Earthling, different page that I didn't finish. And I did an Artcasters, which is a thing that Jeff Lafferty and Peter Palmiotti do. I think this one was hosted by Peter. I don't know, not that it makes a difference, but there was a pretty full house. I think there was like 8 of us, more or less. Some people from the U100s, some other people that were not, but all artists, working on whatever and chatting, and so that was fun. And so it was almost the end of the recording by the time I figured out I could make my Cintiq display, because everyone's working on their art, so when they talk, you see somebody painting or drawing or whatever, and I tried to set up a webcam to look at my Cintiq, and it just did not work. So every time I talked, you'd see like this on a screen. But at the end, I figured it out, but then it was almost over. But anyway, I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll put a link here to that episode of Artcasters. And you can watch the whole thing, obviously, if you want to see when I jump in. I come in around 47 minutes in. I was invited, and I late to the party, kind of. Well, not that they invited me late, but I expressed interest, and they're like, yeah, come on, when they'd already started. But I was very... honored, excited, and pleased to be invited. But more importantly, it was fun. And if you watch it, you might get something out of it. I made a lot of dumb jokes, and there was a lot of nice art and jabbers. So there's that. Towards the end of that, I started working on something that wasn't the horror and it wasn't client work. It was sketches for a pinup of Kikaider, the android tokusatsu Japanese hero, the red and blue gentleman who's been in anime and other things. And the reason I'm doing that is because Peter Palmiotti is having a house crisis, or a catastrophe, as it were. The short version is he has 4 cats with his fiancée. The landlord's like, you can't have these cats, you have to move out. And they're like, we love our cats, we don't want to move out. So they're trying to get a new place of their own, but they are having a hard time getting the down payment for the house. And it's not a super expensive house, it's a fixer-upper, but they weren't planning on buying one. The end. So he has I think it's a GoFundMe, but I'll put a link in the show notes to that. And in addition to, if you just want to help him out, you can purchase art. There's going to be art auctions, and that's what this Kikaider piece will be for. It'll go up. I don't know if it'll be. Some of them are going up Monday. I don't know if mine will be up Monday. I'll put up a notification when I do put it up. And you can bid on these pieces of art, including the Kikaider, which I started working on digitally, but it'll be finished as an inked piece. And then not only do you get a nice piece of art, but you're helping a good guy out, and you're helping cats out, really, which is more important than anything else, is because cats should be with the humans that they own. And these cats right now are away from the humans, and they don't have their normal human slaves. And that's not right. So help him out. Also, the Kickstarter for Earthling is still going, so while you're looking at the GoFundMe, you can look at the Kickstarter. And all links for all this stuff will be in the show notes down there. That is if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're not watching it native on YouTube, you'll have to swing over to YouTube, or just Google things. So after that is when I got to work on the horror. And I did about an hour, so, you know, okay. And I worked on the first panel, which I didn't quite finish. I made some good progress. It's the island. I got most of the inks done. I need to put, like, the boats in, the clouds, but I got pretty much the island done. And I experimented with the grays a bit, and I still have not settled on how I'm going to do the grays. I know I'm going to do it in grayscale. But I think it's good that I decided to start working on finals early, since I'm already having questions about what the final look will be. But I think tomorrow I'll finish up the inks on this, but not work on the grays anymore. And each panel I do, I'm just going to do one pass on the grays and see how it looks. When I get to the end of this page, I'll have all the panels inked properly with varying different types of gray and see which one looks best, and that'll be the look. And today, the one I did today, I did not like as much as the one I did yesterday. So right now, that one's winning. But I did a couple of versions that I'll crossfade, and do a little narration over that, and I will do that now.
So this is the first image, just a black and white of the color design I originally did, and here's the inks. I used, I think, 3 different line weights, digital. Put in some choppy water, but I realized it was probably too much chop, so I scaled that back. Then I put my first gray layer over the water, and what I liked about that was cutting out the white to give it little crests. That gray I was not a big fan of.
So there was that. Do I have any parting thoughts? Well, let me look at my notes. So one other thing is I belong to a bunch of Facebook artist-type groups that for various things. One of them is artists seeking commissions or something like that. Excuse me. And there was someone there that was a listing looking for an artist, obviously. And it's one of these listings which I've seen before where it was, you know, hey, here's a picture of X, and I'm looking for someone to draw in this style. And, you know, that's what I want, and I'm willing to talk about how much it'll cost. And that always, more and more, I don't want to say rubs me the wrong way, but baffles me maybe. Because I always feel like if I'm looking at art online and I find a piece of art I like, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm looking for, then I would try to track that artist down and hire them to do it. And if they couldn't do it, I'd say, who do you suggest? There's someone that's similar to your style, someone you know is reputable, and go with that. But often I see people just picking some random piece of art, sometimes by a big name artist, but usually, like, this wasn't some big name artist that did it. I don't know who they were, you know, they were just some artist. And they're like, they don't want to, either they don't want to pay that artist's prices, or they don't want to go to the bother of finding out who they are. And so then they take a different artist and say, hey, draw out of your comfort zone and make your style fit this and get paid less than probably I would pay that person and do it. And it's just a weird thing, which I don't understand. And more when someone's looking for a style, a specific style, I don't want to do it. I mean, if I'm desperate for money, obviously I'll do it, but there's a difference between, hey, do it a little bit more cartoony, or do it a little bit more grim, or a little bit more heavy blacks, or, you know, kind of slight directions to go in, using my own judgment within the scope of what my style normally is. But when it's like, hey, could you draw this like Jack Kirby, or could you draw this like, you know, not Noam Chomsky. No, draw this like Noam Chomsky. Oh man, who's that famous American artist? Norman Rockwell. That's the guy, the only American famous artist. You know, it's like, probably not. And in the past I would try because I'm so eager for work and or broke, but it's like ridiculous. Like, why you asking? You see my samples that aren't anything like that. I don't know. Similarly, a similar complaint, and I said something the other day about cover art and how having a different artist I'm not a big fan of. This kind of goes more with that, where someone had a book they wanted to do. I think it was on bullying or something, but it had this like kind of cool, hip teenage girl play like electric guitar and stuff. And they were like, we're doing this comic, we're looking for artists to do the pages. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm interested. I thought, and then I'm like, well, I don't really have time right now anyway. Maybe if they're still looking in a couple weeks. But what I didn't like, I don't know the page rate or anything. They were like, we're funded, the script is all done, we're ready to go, and we have all the characters designed by whatever artist designed them. And they had like turnarounds and facial expressions and all this stuff, and like I said, a cool like electric guitar shot, very nicely drawn, cool character. Why? why aren't they doing the book? Or why didn't they have the person doing the book do the character designs? Because once again, it's like, oh, you are already in love and invested in this style and this character. This is the character in your mind now. Anything I do that is not exactly that is either going to be a bad imitation of that or a direction you don't really want to go in. And the only thing I can think is that this is someone who doesn't normally do comics. They're not good at sequential pages or whatever, so fair enough. But then why hire them to do character designs? Like, what comic artist can't design characters? That's like the easier part of the two things. So, I chalk a lot of this up to like ignorance of the way things work, and not ignorance in an insulting way, but in the literal way of like lack of knowledge of the way things work. But then I also kind of get mad at the person who's like, oh, I can't do comics, but you can pay me to do all the designs and then make someone else do it. I mean, I might take that job, to be fair. That sounds like a pretty awesome job. Like, oh, I design all the characters and walk away and you'll pay me? Yeah, sure. But being on the other end of that, not so great. But I probably won't be able to apply for that job anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to wrap it up now. It wasn't the most productive day, but I had a lot of garbage in the beginning with my teeth and face that I will allow it. I'll allow it. That's my pen gavel. So, until next time, this has been Gazbot for 100 Days of Making Comics. Today's day 88, and that means
we have 12 days left.
nothing.
Hey, come on in here.